July 1943. The German command is in a panic. Their newest, absolutely invulnerable monsters, the Ferdinand self-propelled guns, are being destroyed one after another. The armor, 20 centimeters thick, remains intact, but the crews inside have been turned into jelly, without a single penetration. General Model demands an answer. What is this secret Russian weapon? Seismic bombs? Magnetic mines from the future? The truth turned out to be so scandalous and, at first glance, so foolish that the author of the idea was nearly executed by his own commanders right in front of the formation. No nanotechnology, no secret labs. To stop the Wehrmacht's elite, a simple Soviet tractor driver needed something lying in a trash heap and a grasp of physics that makes your blood run cold. How did an aluminum milk can defeat the designers at Porsche? And why did this hillbilly invention scare the Germans more than the Katyusha rockets? Watch to the end. This story will overturn your understanding of ingenuity in war. The overheated breech of a gun, the smell of burnt cordite eating into a tunic, the ringing of snapped steel making blood run from ears. July 1943. The northern face of the Kursk salient. In the air, shimmering with heat, there is a hum that sounds like a giant factory floor. But this is no factory. It is the sound of Maybach engines pushing 65 tons of German steel forward. Silhouettes appear on the horizon, unlike anything the Red Army has faced before. These aren't tanks in the usual sense. They are self-propelled pillboxes. They are Ferdinands. A voiceover, dry and devoid of emotion, reads like an autopsy report. The Wehrmacht bet on absolute protection. Engineers from Porsche and the Nibelungenwerke plant created a monster that ignored the laws of field ballistics of that time. Frontal armor, 200 millimeters. 200. That is the thickness of a concrete slab in a bomb shelter. But here it is cemented Krupp steel. It is installed vertically, not sloped, as if the Germans are mocking our attempts to find a weak spot. In the frame is the crew of a Soviet 76mm ZIS-3 cannon. The artillerymen's faces are gray with dust and soot. Their eyes are wide. They are doing their job, but mechanical terror shows in their movements. The gunner spins the handwheel, trying to catch the approaching gray mass in the crosshairs. "Armor piercing!" The gun commander's scream breaks into a wheeze. "Aim low! Hit the lower plate!" The loader shoves the shell in. The clang of the breech block. Fire. The camera follows the trajectory of the shell. A slug weighing 6.5 kilograms flies at a speed of 680 meters per second. Physics says the kinetic energy should be enough to smash through any side armor, but physics crashes against the 200 millimeters of the frontal plate. Impact. A shower of sparks. The shell just crumbles to dust or bounces off into the sky like a ball off a brick wall. Only a gray scratch and barely noticeable soot remain on the German machine's armor. The Ferdinand doesn't even slow down. It continues to crawl, grinding the dry black soil with its tracks, like a huge iron smoothing out the folds of the terrain. "Ricochet!" screams the gunner, wiping sweat from his eyes. "Sergeant, it's not taking it! Like peas against a wall!" "Fire! Armor piercing! Fire!" The commander doesn't hear, or doesn't want to hear. He acts according to regulations, which prescribe shooting to the last. But the regulations were written before these steel fortresses rolled onto the battlefield. The German machine stops. Slowly, with the lazy grace of a predator, it turns its long barrel, 88 millimeters, a converted anti-aircraft gun capable of shooting down planes at an altitude of 10 kilometers. Now it is looking at a small artillery shield behind which people are hiding. Flash! The sound of the German gun's report is dry and sharp, like the crack of a whip. The return blow is instantaneous. The Soviet cannon, along with its crew, is tossed into the air. A wheel tears off and rolls across the scorched grass. The metal of the gun shield tears like paper. The voiceover continues to dispassionately record the catastrophe. The standard anti-tank assets of the Red Army in July 1943 turned out to be technically bankrupt. 45s are useless. The 76 caliber is effective only point blank, from the side, from a suicide distance of less than 200 meters. Howitzer artillery cannot hit a moving target with direct fire. Aviation cannot pierce the top armor without a direct hit from a large caliber bomb. This was not a battle. It was an execution. In the battalion commander's dugout, the atmosphere is like a compressed spring. The telephone receiver seems to melt in the major's hand. "I can't stop them!" he screams into the membrane, his voice cracking. "Fifth, I can't! They are coming right down the highway. The shells are bouncing off. I have nothing to cover them with. 100% equipment loss in the second battery." The German tactic is simple and cynical. The Ferdinands go in front, using their invulnerability. They expose Russian firing points, provoke them to fire, and then destroy them from a distance of 1.5 to 2 kilometers, remaining absolutely unpunished. Their Zeiss optics allow the gunner to see the rivets on our cannon when our gunner sees only a blurry spot. The viewer sees a panorama of the battlefield. It is a conveyor belt of destruction. Tu-34s are burning, flaring up like matchboxes. Their 85 millimeters of frontal armor against the German gun is nothing. Crews jump out of burning machines, rolling on the ground to put out the flames. Infantry, deprived of cover, press into the bottom of the trenches, feeling the earth tremble. This trembling transmits to the spine, paralyzing the will. It is not the fear of death, it is the fear of helplessness, before a machine that cannot be killed. Dialogue in an infantry trench. 2 soldiers, faces black with dust, press against the trench wall. "Did you see that?" whispers one, nodding toward the burning skeleton of a tank. "It was a direct hit. Direct! And he didn't even care. Shook it off and kept coming." "That's an elephant," the second spits, nervously racking the bolt of his rifle, which is as useless here as a stick. "Or a Ferdinand. They say only a howitzer takes their hide, if you land it right on top." "But where are we going to get a howitzer?" A collapse was brewing on this sector of the front. The German offensive relied not on numbers, but on the qualitative superiority of material. The engineering thought of the Third Reich created an absolute, a closed circuit of armor and fire. To break this wall required a solution outside the instructions of the People's Commissariat of Defense. It required something that wasn't in the tactical textbooks. Because when steel is powerless, chemistry must step in. And intelligence. Another Ferdinand looms toward the camera. A tank track grinds a discarded helmet. The clang of metal fills the entire soundscape, drowning out the cries of the wounded and the commands of officers. It seems this clang is the only sound that will remain in this world. An inexorable, cold, mathematically verified death machine that knows no pity and sees no obstacles. 200 millimeters of steel separate the crew inside from the fury of war outside. And for now, those 200 millimeters are winning. In the staff dugout, the major throws the receiver onto the cradle of the field telephone. He looks at the map, where thick red arrows of the German breakthrough rip open the defense like a knife rips fabric. "If we don't stop them before morning," he says, looking not at the officers, but at the earthen floor, "they will break into the operational rear. And then it's curtains. Curtains for everyone." He raises his eyes. There is no panic in them, only the cold realization that standard methods of war have run out. Only death or a miracle remains. But there are no miracles in war. There is only physics. And if our physics is weaker than their physics, we are dead men. The frame freezes on the silhouette of a Ferdinand shrouded in smoke. It seems like an indestructible monument to an alien, hostile force. A force that cannot be stopped by iron. But war is not just iron. It is also what lies underfoot, what can be found in the backyard of a ruined village, what can turn a high-tech monster into a pile of scrap metal, if you know how to stack the proportions correctly. But for now, no one knows this. For now, there is only despair and the ring of ricochets. The roar of the cannonade remains behind, replaced by the oppressive silence of the engineering battalion's rear supply depot. It doesn't smell of gunpowder here. It smells of dampness, mold, and hopelessness. Senior Sergeant Grachev stands before empty boxes that used to hold explosives. Inside, there are only wood shavings and oiled paper. No TNT. The front's logistics have choked. Trains with ammunition are burning somewhere under bombings on the tracks, and here, on the front line, the sappers are left empty-handed against an armored armada. The supply lieutenant spreads his hands, hiding his eyes. He has nothing to give. Regulations require laying minefields, but mines exist only on paper invoices. Grachev doesn't yell. He wipes his hands with a rag, slowly, finger by finger. He is not a career military man, not a graduate of an academy. He is a tractor driver from near Voronezh, a man of the soil. To him, a tank isn't a mythical monster, but a mechanism, a tractor clad in iron, and any mechanism obeys the laws of mechanics. If there is an action force, there must be a reaction force. The question is only the leverage. The sergeant's gaze slides across the yard of the semi-ruined collective farm homestead where the platoon is quartered. In the corner, under a leaky canopy, sacks are piled up. On them is a half-worn inscription: ammonium nitrate. Fertilizer. Nitrogen for the soil. Next to it is a mountain of sawdust left over from sawing logs for dugouts. Trash. In Grachev's head, a switch flips. Click. The war disappears. A task remains. Pulling stumps. He remembers the year 1939. A collective farm field. Huge, knotty roots of ancient oaks that neither axe nor plow could take. Back then there was no TNT either. They brought ammonite, a surrogate, a mixture of that same nitrate with a combustible filler. They blew them up. The earth sighed, swelled up in a huge bubble, and the roots flew out like rotten teeth. The chemistry of the process is simple as a sledgehammer blow. TNT is a brisant substance. It works sharply, shatters, tears metal at the point of contact. Its detonation velocity is almost 7,000 meters per second. It is a whip crack. This is good for piercing armor, but to flip or break a 60-ton behemoth, you don't need a whip. You need leverage. You need a massive shove. A mixture of ammonium nitrate and wood sawdust. A surrogate explosive, finicky, hygroscopic. But it has a property that is most important right now: heaving action. It burns slower than TNT. The blast wave turns out viscous, dense. It doesn't strike sharply. It pushes. It works like a giant gas piston. If you lay enough, this piston will strike the tank's belly from below, and the belly is the weakest spot. There aren't 200 millimeters of Krupp steel there. There is only a 20 or 30 millimeter weld seam. Grachev squats down, takes a handful of sawdust. Dry. Good. If you mix them with nitrate in a proportion, memory throws up numbers from civilian life. Not from a sapper manual, but from the experience of agricultural blasting. 70% oxidizer, 30% fuel, or 80 to 20. Better more nitrate, just to be sure. Sawdust here is just fuel that must burn in the oxygen released by the fertilizer. But what to pack it in? A standard TM-35 anti-tank mine carries about 3 kilograms of TNT. That's enough to break the track of a light tank. To a Ferdinand, that's like a pellet to an elephant. It will simply lose one track link. The crew will fix it in half an hour and drive on to kill. We need more. We need 20, or better yet, 25 kilograms of explosive mixture for one charge. Wooden boxes? They'll rot, get wet. Nitrate will pull moisture from the ground in one night and turn into useless mush. We need something airtight. Iron? There is no iron. It all went to smelting. His eye catches a gleam in a pile of junk by the barn. Aluminum. Milk cans. Ordinary collective farm flasks for transporting milk. Capacity, 38 or 40 litres. Wide mouth, tight lid with a rubber seal and a clamp lock. Perfect tightness. Perfect volume. Grachev walks up to the can, kicks it with the toe of his boot. A ringing, hollow sound. Light. Aluminum doesn't spark. This is important when working with explosive dust. The body is strong, will withstand tamping. In the sergeant's brain, an equation of death comes together. First, an aluminium milk can as the mine casing. Second, 25 kilograms of a mixture of nitrate and sawdust inside. Third, a 200-gram TNT block as a booster. The mixture is too inert to set off from a regular cap. Fourth, an MUV fuse working on pressure. This is not a weapon of victory from posters. This is homemade. Makeshift. In peacetime, you'd be court-martialed for this. Use of untested means, violation of safety regulations, arbitrariness. But now, time is measured not by paragraphs of the manual, but by hours until dawn. Grachev picks up the can. It weighs a couple of kilograms. If stuffed with the mixture, it will be close to 30. Heavy. We'll have to drag it on oneself, crawling at night across no man's land. But that's just logistics. The main thing is, there is a solution. Sergeant! A lance corporal runs up and calls out to him, young with darting eyes. The battalion commander demands a report on the minefields. What do I report? We have nothing. Grachev puts the can on the ground. The sound is dull, dense. He looks at the lance corporal not as a subordinate, but as a partner in heavy, dirty work. Report that the material has been found. Grachev's voice creaks like an ungreased hinge. We're going to cook porridge, agricultural style. He feels no inspiration. There is no flash of genius. There is only the cold calculation of a practitioner who understood how to turn disadvantages into advantages. The shortage of TNT forced a search for a replacement. The gravity of the situation forced an increase in caliber. An aluminum can for milk became the only available container for the hellish machine. This is the mathematics of survival. The Germans have advanced engineering, factories, laboratories, years of calculations. Grachev has fertilizer, sawdust, and milk cans. On the scales of history, these quantities seem incomparable. But Grachev knows one rule unknown to German designers. The more complex the mechanism, the easier it is to break if you hit the right spot with enough force. He takes a handful of nitrate, rubs the white granules between his fingers. They are hard, cold. This isn't sand. This is frozen energy. It just needs to be released correctly. Gather the men, he throws to the lance corporal without turning around. Drag every can you find in the village. And the saw. We're going to saw a lot of sawdust. There is no heroism in this. It is just work. Dirty, dusty, dangerous work that needs to be done before the sun rises and the steel monsters crawl east again. Grachev sees before him not a battlefield, but a plowed field that needs to be cleared of stumps. Very big, steel, shooting stumps. And he knows how to do it. Without magic. With only physics and anger. The stale air of the command dugout, a mixture of tobacco smoke, the smell of damp earth, and the sharp scent of cheap cologne with which officers try to drown out the smell of sweat. The light of a kerosene lamp picks out tense faces from the gloom. The major, the battalion commander, taps a pencil on the map like a woodpecker counting down the last seconds to disaster. Senior Sergeant Grachev stands at the entrance. He crumples his cap in his hands. Against the background of officers with their map cases and telephones, he looks like a foreign body. Dirty, soaked in the smell of diesel and manure. But in his eyes, there is no fear of authority. There is the fatigue of a man who knows the solution, but isn't sure he'll be allowed to voice it. "Permission to speak, Comrade Major." Grachev's voice sounds dull. The major raises his head, eyes red from insomnia. "What is it, Sergeant?" "No mines, no reinforcements. If you came to whine, go to the political officer." Grachev takes a step toward the table. He doesn't lay out a map. He puts an aluminum milk can on the table. Empty. It clatters against the wood of the tabletop, drawing an annoyed look from the Chief of Staff. "No mines," Grachev agrees. "But there are explosives. Only they're farm grade." Silence hangs in the dugout. An engineering captain attached from the regimental staff grimaces in disgust. "What are you talking about, Sergeant? Nitrate? Have you read the regulations? The manual on demolition?" "I read it," Grachev nods. "It says about TNT, about melanite. But our warehouses are empty, and the Ferdinands will be here tomorrow morning." The captain flares up. For him, a man with an academic education, the proposal to use fertilizer against the elite of German armored troops is heresy. It is a violation of all norms of safety and efficiency. "It's a surrogate!" he almost screams, poking a finger at the can. "Ammonium nitrate mixture is hygroscopic. It will get damp in the ground in 3 hours. It has low brisance. Detonation velocity is, God willing, 2,000 or 3,000 meters per second. TNT gives 7,000. Do you understand the difference, Sergeant? Your porridge will just fart under the track. The tank won't even notice. We aren't pulling stumps." Here, two logics collide. The logic of war by the rules, which has already lost, and the logic of survival, which is ready to break all rules for a chance. Grachev doesn't argue with formulas. He grabs the can by the handle. "Comrade Captain, you are right about brisance. TNT shatters. It's angry. But nitrate with sawdust, it's viscous." Grachev searches for words, trying to explain the physics of the explosion in the language of a tractor driver. "It doesn't hit. It pushes. It's like a piston. If we pack this can tightly, give it a booster from a 200-gram block, we get a gas bubble of huge volume." He looks straight into the major's eyes. "We don't need to pierce the bottom. We need to toss the machine. The Ferdinand has a rigid suspension, complex transmission. If we give a blow from below across the entire area of the belly, everything inside will be torn from its mountings. The engine will come off the cushions. The crew will be concussed so bad blood will come out of their ears. It's not armor penetration. It's a hydraulic hammer, only with gas." The major is silent. He looks at the can. Ordinary household utensil. His mother used to carry milk from the farm in ones like these. Now the sergeant suggests stopping the best tanks of the Wehrmacht with this milk. It sounds like the ravings of a madman. Like a gamble for which, in case of failure, everyone present will be shot. Improvised explosive devices are prohibited by the front directive, the chief of staff says quietly. There is no guarantee of detonation.
If they drive over your cans and they don't explode, we'll be accused of sabotage.
And if they drive over empty holes, will we be accused of cowardice? Grachev parries. Metal cuts through his voice. Comrade Major, we have 25 kilograms of mixture per charge. That is 5 times more than in a standard mine. Even if it works at half strength, it's a sledgehammer blow weighing a ton. The Major stands up. He walks to the embrasure, looks into the darkness. There, beyond the line of trenches, the roar of engines is heard. The Germans are warming up their engines, preparing. They have everything: steel, optics, communications, discipline. The Major has only a tired sergeant and a pile of fertilizer. The situation backs him into a corner. Bureaucracy and fear of responsibility are powerful brakes, but the fear of a German breakthrough is stronger. In the morning, it will be hell here, and if there is even one chance to turn this hell into a trap, it must be used. Even if this chant smells of manure and sawdust. How many cans do you have? The battalion commander asks without turning around. Gathered from the whole village. We'll find about 40. Enough nitrate. Sawing sawdust now. The engineering captain tries to object. Comrade Major, I won't sign the installation report. This is makeshift work. MUV fuses aren't designed for— Silence! The Major spins around sharply. His face is hard as a mask. We'll write reports later, if we survive. He walks up close to Grachev. Between them is the smell of cheap tobacco and the heavy tension of choice. Do it, Sergeant. But listen to me carefully. The Major lowers his voice to a whisper that sends shivers down the spine. If your cans don't work, if the Germans get through, I will personally shoot you in front of the formation. If I have time, of course, before they crush us. Do you understand? Understood, Grachev answers calmly. They won't pass. Physics won't let them. Go. You have 5 hours until dawn. Grachev salutes and leaves. The door slams. Silence hangs in the dugout again, broken only by the crackle of the wick in the lamp. The officers exchange glances. They have just authorized madness. They have bet their lives and the honor of their uniform on a mixture for fertilizing vegetable gardens. Outside, Grachev takes a deep breath. The night air cools his lungs. His hands aren't shaking. The trembling was back there in the dugout when the fate of the idea was being decided. Now that the go-ahead is received, only action remains. A technical task. He knows the captain is right about the moisture. Nitrate is hygroscopic. That is its Achilles heel. If the can isn't airtight, if the rubber on the lid has dried out, everything is lost. But he also knows that aluminum holds water better than wood, and for certainty, the joints can be smeared with grease or tar. It is a risk, a monstrous risk. Not only of a military career, but of life. A sapper makes a mistake once. That's a pretty phrase for the movies. Here, a sapper's mistake is a breakthrough of the front and the death of thousands of people. Grachev feels this weight on his shoulders. It is heavier than a sack of nitrate. But there are no doubts. There is the cold calculation of a practitioner. He sees this explosion in his head. He feels how 25 kilograms of slow gas begin to burst the earth, how they strike the steel belly of the Ferdinand, how the weld seams burst. It won't be a snap, like from TNT. It will be an inhale of the earth, a deadly inhale. Well? The lance corporal emerges from the darkness. They gave the go-ahead, Grachev throws out. Bring the grease, and the cans, everything we have. Command demands fireworks. They walk to the barn where work is already boiling. This is no longer an army unit. It is an artel. A manufacturing shop under the open sky.
There is no place for regulation commands here.
The collective mind of people backed into a corner is working here. Grachev looks at the sky. No stars visible. Good. Darkness is a sapper's friend. But time is his enemy. The clock is ticking, measuring the minutes until dawn. Every minute is another handful of sawdust, another packed can. The bet is placed. At stake is life. And not just his own. Headquarters gave the go-ahead. But will physics give the go-ahead? And here begins the verification of theory by practice. The cruelest verification of all possible. The whine of a saw biting into pine wood tears the night silence, drowning out even the distant rumble of the front. In the courtyard of the semi-ruined tractor station, production has unfolded which any career officer of the engineering troops would call criminal amateurism. But here, 5 kilometers from the front line, laws are written not in headquarters, but in workshops. Soldiers of Sergeant Grachev's platoon are combing the village. It is a strange raid. They aren't looking for spies or captives. They are looking for containers. Everything goes into action. Abandoned cellars, attics, sheds. The knock of rifle butts on doors. Barking of dogs. "Grandma, got any cans? Milk cans? Bring them!" "Son, what do you need them for?" "We're going to give the Germans a drink, to their fill." They drag them in armfuls. Aluminum cylinders of 38 liters. Dented, scratched, smelling of sour milk and old rubber. In civilian life, this is a symbol of satiety and village comfort. Here, it is a blank for a mine casing. Aluminum is a soft, light metal. It doesn't spark on impact, which is critically important when working with dry, explosive mixture in a cloud of dust. In the center of the yard, on a spread canvas, the sacrament of mixing takes place. It is dirty, hard work that makes throats scratch and eyes water. Ammonium nitrate is fertilizer packed into stone. It needs to be broken up. Fighters beat the white lumps with wooden mallets, turning them into fine groats. Dust rises in an acrid cloud. It settles on eyelashes, clogs noses, eats into sweaty abrasions on hands. Nearby grows a mountain of sawdust, fresh, yellow, smelling of resin. Grachev personally checks the humidity, takes a handful, squeezes it in his fist. Sawdust must be dry as gunpowder. If they are damp, the reaction will slow down, detonation will fade, and instead of an explosion, there will be a fizzle. "Mix thoroughly," Grachev commands, shouting over the whine of the saw. "Scoop from the bottom, so it's like dough, uniform." The proportion is borne by eye, but this eye is more accurate than apothecary scales. 70% nitrate, 30 sawdust. Sappers, looking like millers, shovel the mixture with wooden spades. Metal cannot be used. A spark in such dust could turn the whole yard into a mass grave ahead of time. Infantry passing by on the road to the front line slows down. Soldiers look at the sappers with unconcealed skepticism. "Hey, moles! What are you doing? Planning to plant a garden?" "We're going to fertilize the German," snaps one of the chemists. "With sawdust? Yeah, right. You might as well throw straw at them." The infantrymen's laughter is angry, nervous. They are going to die under the tracks, and the sight of people messing with trash instead of real mines causes them irritation. They don't believe in this agricultural method. They believe in steel and TNT. And here is a carpentry shop. Grachev doesn't react. He is busy with the main thing, tamping. The mixture is poured into cans in layers. Each layer needs to be compacted. The denser the charge, the higher the detonation velocity, the more terrible the blow.
Fighters work with shovel handles, driving kilogram after kilogram into the aluminum gut.
20, 22, 25 kilograms of death in every can. The final touch is installing the heart. By itself, nitrate is inert. It won't start from a blasting cap. It needs a powerful kick. Grachev takes a 200-gram TNT block, a booster. He carefully presses it into the center of the tamped mixture, right under the neck. An MD5 fuse is screwed into the block. A wire is tied to the pin. The can is closed. The click of the clamp lock sounds like the cocking of a hammer. Now it is not a container. It is a sealed, casingless munition, where the shell is needed only for delivery and protection from moisture. "Comrade Senior Sergeant," the lance corporal wipes his face with his sleeve, smearing white dust. "Will it definitely, well, blow? The infantry is laughing. They say we're fooling around." Grachev sees doubt in his men's eyes. They are tired. They have breathed in chemistry. They are scared that their labor will turn out useless. Words won't convince here. A demonstration is needed. "Take one," Grachev nods at a finished can. "And digging tools. Let's go to the ravine." They move 300 meters away, into a deep gully hidden from German observers by a forest belt. Grachev chooses a spot on the bottom where the ground is denser. "Dig. 1 spade deep." The can lies in the damp earth. They throw sod on top, mask it. Grachev ties a long cord to the pin of the MUV fuse. "Take cover! Open your mouths or your eardrums will burst!" The soldiers and a few curious infantrymen who tagged along fall behind the parapet of an old trench. Grachev waits. Inhale. Exhale. Jerk of the cord. A moment of silence. And then the earth under their feet jumps. It is not the sharp crack characteristic of TNT. It is a dull, womb-like roar coming from the very underworld.
The sound is heavy, low frequency. It hits the chest, knocking the air out of the lungs.
A black dome swells at the bottom of the ravine. Tons of soil fly into the sky, mixed with dust and smoke. The blast wave passes through the ravine, ripping leaves from bushes. Trees sway like drunks. When the dust settles, everyone runs to the explosion site. The infantrymen who were baring their teeth 5 minutes ago stand silently. Their faces are long. At the site of the charge gapes a crater 4 meters in diameter and chest deep. The earth around is heaved up, slabs of sod turned inside out. But the scariest thing is the smell. A sharp, suffocating smell of burnt ammonia and scorched earth. "Holy crap," whispers one of the infantrymen, looking into the black pit. "If that goes off under a track, it'll turn it inside out." Grachev walks to the edge of the crater. He is satisfied. The calculation was justified. Gas formation is colossal. The mixture worked not for shattering, but for a heaving discharge. The energy of the explosion didn't go into destroying the shell, it's almost non-existent, but into work on the ground. The aluminum burned up, he states, kicking a melted piece of metal, all that remains of the can. High temperature, that added pressure. He turns to his fighters. Skepticism has vanished. A spark of predatory excitement has lit up in their eyes. Now they know. In these cans are not sawdust. In them is a force capable of breaking the spines of steel monsters. Convinced? Grachev's voice sounds hard. Now run back. We have 39 empty ones left, and 4 hours until dawn, so that by morning the whole road is sown. Let's work, men. Let's cook porridge. The sappers return to the barn almost running. Fatigue is gone. A goal has appeared. Now every shoveled scoop of sawdust, every blow of the mallet on a chunk of nitrate is filled with meaning. They are no longer scavengers. They are creators of a trap for the most perfect machine in the world. The process accelerates. The conveyor works without glitches. Packing, tamping, inserting the detonator, sealing. Cans line up in a row against the wall, gleaming with aluminum sides in the moonlight. 40 sleeping volcanoes. 40 death sentences signed by the hand of a simple collective farm tractor driver. Grachev looks at the finished charges. A mining scheme is already building in his head. Chessboard pattern, intervals, depth of laying. German pedantry will collide with Russian ingenuity multiplied by chemistry. And this meeting will be loud. But creating a charge is only half the battle. It needs to be delivered. It needs to be hidden so that a mosquito couldn't get its nose in. And it needs to be done right under the nose of the enemy, who doesn't sleep and listens to the night with thousands of ears. The hardest part of the work is just beginning. Alchemy is finished. The lottery with death begins. The moon drowns in clouds, and this is the only gift from nature. The clock shows 2 a.m., the time when sleep is deepest and sentries' vigilance is dulled by the cold of pre-dawn fog. But the sappers of Grachev's platoon aren't sleeping. They are crawling. It is a strange procession, shadow people flattened against the dry, hard grass of no man's land. No straps, no comfortable backpacks. Each drags an aluminum can weighing 25 kilograms in front of him or on his side. Smooth metal sides wrapped in dirty rags so they don't gleam or clink. It is heavy. 25 kilograms of inert cargo that pulls to the ground, cuts into ribs, knocks the breath out. This isn't a forced march. This is belly crawling by centimeters. Ahead is the only tank-accessible sector, a dry dirt road, hard as concrete. This is exactly where the Ferdinands will go in the morning. Germans don't like mud. They like roads. And Grachev is betting on this German habit of comfort. 300 meters to German positions. The wind brings the smell of cheap tobacco and the sounds of a harmonica. There, in the darkness, the enemy feels like the master. He is sure the Russians have dug into the ground and are trembling in anticipation of the end. He doesn't know that death is already crawling toward him in milk containers. Grachev raises his hand. Stop. The group freezes. Only the chirping of cicadas and the heavy, raspy breathing of men are heard. The pounding of the heart in the temples seems louder than cannonade. If a flare goes up now, they are targets in a shooting gallery, defenseless, with a load of explosives in their hands. A burst of machine gun fire, and only a wet spot will remain of a sapper. Let's work, the sergeant's barely audible whisper. In threes, without sound. The scariest part begins. They need to break open the ground. The road has been packed down for decades.
Carts, trucks, tractors turned the earth into stone. The sapper shovel is powerless here. Knives and short pickaxes go into action. Clink. Metal scratches a cobblestone hidden in the dust. The sound is quiet, but in the night silence, it rings out like a shot. Everyone freezes, pressing their faces into the dust. Grachev feels cold sweat running down his back. He looks toward the German trenches. Silence there. Lucky. Careful, damn it, he mouths. Feel with your hands. They dig deep holes.
The can is a bulky thing, half a meter high. It needs to be sunk so that there are still 10 to 15 centimeters of soil left above the lid for camouflage. This isn't a pancake mine that can be sprinkled with dust. This is an engineering structure. Soil is removed carefully, placed on rain capes. Not a single handful of earth must remain on the road. Excess earth is a demasking sign. German sappers are professionals. They read the road like a book.
Any bump, any fresh spot will arouse suspicion.
420 kilograms of explosive mixture. That is the total amount being laid into the ground tonight. Grachev places charges in a chessboard pattern. Interval, 5 meters. The logic is simple. If the tank doesn't run over it with the track, it will let the mine pass between the tracks, under the belly. For the MUV pressure fuse, a direct load is needed. Therefore, Grachev installs whiskers, wooden lever planks that expand the trigger zone. Any pressure on the plank will pull the pin. The sapper's hands are black with dirt and grease. Fingers are battered to blood, but there is no fatigue. There is only the animal fear of not making it in time. The sky in the east begins to turn grey. The treacherous dawn is already close. "Set the fuses," Grachev commands. This is the moment of truth. One wrong move, and 25 kilograms of mixture will go off right in the face. Safety pins are removed with jeweler's precision.
Now the can is a cocked spring. It is waiting. The last stage is camouflage. It is an art. Sappers fill the holes, tamp the earth with fists so the density doesn't differ from the rest of the road. On top, they sprinkle road dust, throw dry blades of grass, old horse manure. Grachev crawls along the line of charges. He checks the work. His gaze seeks flaws. Here, too smooth, unnatural. He takes a handful of gravel and carelessly scatters it over the spot. Now it looks right. The road looks old, tired, beaten by life, but safe. "Let's go," a hand signal. They crawl away backwards, sweeping their tracks with branches. Excess soil is carried away in rain capes to be dumped in the ravine. The perfect crime. No evidence. When they tumble into their trench, the sun is already painting the treetops a bloody color. People fall to the bottom of the trench, greedily gasping for air. Hands shake so much it's impossible to roll a cigarette. Grachev looks at the dirt road through binoculars.
Empty, quiet. An ordinary rural road in the Kursk region. No one would say that a volcano sleeps under this layer of dust. 420 kilograms of fury packed in aluminum. "Well, Sergeant?" The major descends into the trench. His face is gray, eyes inflamed. "Did you make it?" "The road is clean, Comrade Major." Grachev spits out dust that grinds on his teeth. "The crop is sown, waiting for guests." The major looks at him with a long, heavy gaze. He knows the price of these words. If the Germans discover the charges, if Wehrmacht sappers go through with probes, it was all for nothing. And a tribunal will be the mildest outcome. "Go sleep, Grachev, at least for an hour." But sleeping is impossible. Nerves are taut like the string on that fuse. One thought spins in the head. Will it work or not? Did the mixture get damp? Did the ground pinch the detonator tube? The silence is torn by the sound of engines.
A low, rumbling bass. They have woken up.
The Ferdinands are warming their 12-cylinder hearts. The earth begins to tremble slightly. This vibration transmits through boot soles straight into the soul. It begins. Grachev takes out a pouch, rolls a goat's leg cigarette. His fingers finally stopped shaking. Now nothing depends on him. Now chemistry and fate are at work. He did his job. He changed the landscape. He turned a piece of geography into a piece of history. All that remains is to wait for physics to present its bill to German engineering. In the morning fog, the first silhouettes appear. They are huge, boxy superstructures, long barrels. They walk confidently, boldly, knowing that within a radius of 2 kilometers, there is nothing that could harm them. At the head of the column, as expected, go the sappers, small figures in gray uniforms. They wave mine detectors left and right, as if mowing grass. Grachev inhales the acrid smoke of rough tobacco and stares through binoculars without blinking. Everything will be decided now. Technology versus ingenuity. Electronics versus aluminum. Life versus death. The duel has begun. The sun rises above the horizon, flooding the steppe with harsh, uncompromising light. This is ideal weather for killing. Visibility, 1,000,000 by 1,000,000. The air is transparent, and through Zeiss optical sights, every blade of grass can be seen at a distance of 2 kilometers. The German column forms up in battle order. It is a parade of technology. At the lead go the Ferdinands, 65 tons of weight, electric transmission, 2 engines per side, the pinnacle of engineering thought. Crews inside feel like operators of a complex machine, not soldiers. They are protected by a capsule which, they believe, cannot be cracked. This faith in armor is absolute. It grows into arrogance. In front of the armored monsters move small gray figures. Wehrmacht sappers, the elite of engineering troops. They don't crawl in the mud like Grachev's men. They walk tall, methodically, step by step, probing the road. In their hands are mine detectors, complex devices on vacuum tubes, with induction coils on long poles. A steady hum is in the headphones. The principle of operation is based on the physics of the electromagnetic field. The coil creates a field, and if a piece of iron is buried in the ground, a steel mine casing, a fuse, a fragment, the field is distorted. The tone of the sound in the headphones changes. A squeak means death. A squeak means stop. It is a perfect system. German pedantry allows no mistakes. They know Russians mine roads. They know about TM-35 and TMDB mines. These are steel or wooden boxes, but always with metal fuses, springs, firing pins made of hardened steel. Iron always gives itself away. Iron sings in headphones. Obergefreiter Hans walks along the right rut. He is calm. The device works properly. Batteries are fresh. He sweeps the search frame over the road like a conductor's baton. Grachev's gaze through the trench periscope is riveted to this German. Distance, 400 meters. The sergeant sees the mine detector frame pass exactly over the first can. Now physics should work. But physics is on Grachev's side. Aluminum is paramagnetic. It practically doesn't interact with the magnetic field the way iron does. For the induction coil tuned to find ferrous metal, an aluminum can 30 centimeters deep is a ghost, a void, background noise. Plus the contents, sawdust and nitrate, organic chemistry and inorganic salts. They are transparent to radio waves and magnetic fields. Inside the can, there are no massive steel parts. The only iron part is a tiny spring and firing pin in the MUV fuse, but they are too small and located too deep under a layer of tamped earth and chemical mixture. The device perceives them as natural soil mineralization, or a small splinter, of which there are thousands here. The German sapper walks over the charge. In his headphones, silence. The steady, soothing hum of clean airwaves. He takes a step. Another one. The frame glides over the second can. Silence again. This is the triumph of hillbilly engineering over high science. The German genius that created V-rockets and jet fighters turned out to be blind before milk packaging. They prepared for a war of motors and steel. They were not ready for a war of aluminium and fertilizer. The sapper stops, wipes sweat from his forehead, looks back at the command tank, raises his hand. Clear! This gesture is visible through binoculars to both German officers and the breathless Grachev. No mines! The commander of the lead Ferdinand receives the report via radio. The path is clear. The Russians retreated in panic, not even managing to mine the key dirt road. It is logical. Who would expect resistance from infantry that was flattened by artillery yesterday? Maybach engines roar, spewing clouds of blue smoke. Steel tracks clatter, biting into the dry soil. The column moves. It looks like a slow-motion catastrophe. Multi-ton machines enter the corridor of death. They follow in each other's tracks, confident in the safety guaranteed by their sappers. Grachev lowers his binoculars. His hands rest on the handle of the KPM-1 blasting machine. But it is here only for backup, for controlled charges on the roadside. The main charges are pressure-activated, autonomous. He looks at the road not as a soldier, but as a mechanic. He sees vectors of forces, 65 tons of weight distributed along the length of the track. Specific ground pressure of a Ferdinand is enormous, more than a kilogram per square centimeter. It is a colossal press. When the first roller runs over the lid of the can hidden under a layer of earth, a transfer of force will occur. The wooden whisker plank will snap. The combat pin will fly out of the socket. The firing pin, released by the spring, will strike the cap. The irony of the situation reaches its peak. German crews are protected from shells. Their frontal armor is impenetrable. Sides are reliable. But they are sitting atop a powder keg, the fuse to which they light with their own weight. The most perfect, most protected, most expensive technology of the Second World War now depends on a piece of wire and a can of sawdust. Technological blindness. The enemy trusted his instruments more than the instinct of danger. He forgot that in war, the most terrible weapon is the one that doesn't look like a weapon. The first Ferdinand draws level with the landmark, a broken birch tree. It goes right down the center of the road. Its wide tracks cover the minefield at 2 points simultaneously. Inside the self-propelled gun, the commander looks into the periscope. He sees the horizon, sees the target. He doesn't see what is a meter under his feet. He feels like a god of war, invulnerable, omnipotent. These are the last seconds of his illusion. Grachev doesn't pray. He counts to himself. 1. The machine entered the kill zone. 2. The second tank pulled in. 3. The third. The entire column is in the palm of his hand. They entered perfectly, like on a string. The Wehrmacht sappers, without knowing it, became guides to hell. With their clear signal, they signed the death warrant for their own comrades. Nature froze. Birds fell silent. Even the wind died down. It seems the air itself became dense, sensing the volume of energy that is about to burst out. Aluminum underground creaks under the monstrous pressure of soil compressed by tracks. Now begins a lecture on applied physics. Topic: expansion of gases in a closed volume and the tensile strength of armored vehicle welds. Grachev clenches his teeth harder. "Come on," he whispers. "Come on, darling." Show them who's boss. Time compresses into a dot, into one spark of a cap. The stopwatch hand in Sergeant Grachev's head cuts off the last moment of silence. The entire column, a company of heavy assault guns, has completely pulled onto the mined section. They march tightly, keeping regulation distance side to side, track to track. An ideal target created by German discipline. Grachev doesn't wait for the pressure sensors to work. He decides to help physics. His hand is on the ebonite handle of the KPM-1 blasting machine. This is not a gesture of despair. It is the gesture of an executioner carrying out a sentence. A sharp turn of the handle. An electric impulse runs along the wires at the speed of light, outrunning sound, outrunning thought, outrunning fear. It dives into the ground, to the detonators hidden in aluminum cans, and then the earth under the Wehrmacht's feet rears up. This does not look like usual frontal explosions. TNT gives a sharp, biting pop that shatters stone and metal. Something else is happening here. The mixture of ammonium nitrate and wood sawdust, flashing from the booster, begins to burn with monstrous speed, but slightly slower than the military standard. An effect of volumetric expansion occurs. 25 kilograms of substance in each can instantly turn into a giant gas bubble. Superheated gases, compressed in the closed volume of dense black soil, seek an exit. Pushing down is useless. The planet is there. Sideways, dense soil. There is one way. Up. There, where the steel belly of the German self-propelled gun stands. The blast wave turns out viscous, dense and thick. It works like a giant pneumatic hammer with a wide, striking face. The first Ferdinand, weighing 65 tons, is tossed into the air. The heavy machine, like a toy, tears away from the earth by half a meter. This contradicts common sense, but the laws of Newtonian mechanics are inexorable. Action equals reaction. The gas piston hits the belly with a force of thousands of atmospheres. The belly is the monster's Achilles heel. In front, it has 200 millimeters of armor impenetrable to artillery. Below, only 20 or 30 millimeters of steel sheet joined by welds. Porsche designers counted on anti-personnel mines, but not on high explosives of such power. The welds don't hold. They burst with a screech that drowns in the roar of the explosion. The steel belly is ripped open like a tin can. A firestorm, saturated with burning aluminum and superheated gases, bursts inside the fighting compartment. In the closed space of the superstructure, overpressure arises that is incompatible with life. The crew dies instantly, without even having time to realize what happened. They aren't killed by a fragment. They are killed by baric trauma. The pressure drop turns internal organs into jelly. Following the lead machine, the next charge detonates. Then another. Explosions go in a cascade, merging into one continuous womb-like rumble that vibrates the diaphragm. The second tank loses a track. The multi-ton ribbon snaps, whipping the side. Road wheels, torn from axles, fly apart like bowling pins. The machine, deprived of support, topples onto its side, exposing its vulnerable roof. The third Ferdinand takes the hit right under the engine compartment. The explosion knocks the 600 horsepower Maybach engine off its mounting cushions. The heavy aggregate weighing a ton jumps inside the hull, breaking bulkheads, pipes, the fuel system. Gasoline gushes onto red-hot metal. Flash. Now the chemistry of the tank itself comes into play. Ammunition. 50 shells of 88mm caliber. Powder charges in cases ignite from the fire. Detonation of ammunition is the finale of the drama. The multi-ton superstructure is torn from the turret ring and thrown aside like the lid of a boiling pot. A pillar of fire rises to the height of a 10-story building. The turret, which a minute ago was a symbol of indestructible power, turns into a pile of twisted scrap metal. The entire column is destroyed in 30 seconds. Half a minute ago, the elite of Germany's tank forces marched here. Invincible elephants, the pride of the Führer, the hope of Operation Citadel. Now there is only smoke, soot, and burning iron here. Chaos reigns on the road. Those who were behind and didn't get hit by the direct strike try to turn around, but panic is a bad driver. Mechanics yank levers, machines collide, lock sides, slide into ditches where the side charges, lovingly buried by Grachev's people, are already waiting for them. No heroic shootout, no knightly duel. Just crude, brutal work of explosion energy. Simple sawdust soaked in fertilizer turned out stronger than Krupp steel. Aluminum cans meant for milk outplayed Ferdinand Porsche's design bureau. Grachev lowers his hand from the blasting machine handle. He isn't smiling. He looks at the fiery hell raging on the road with professional interest. Welding let them down, he states dryly, shouting over the crackle of burning ammo. Weak seam. I told you, a heaving wave takes it better. In the air hangs a heavy, sweetish smell of burnt nitrate, mixed with the stench of burnt rubber and roasted meat. This is the smell of victory, not the one drawn on posters with fluttering banners, but a real heavy victory, one with dirty hands and cold calculation. One of the surviving German tankers climbs out of a burning hatch. He falls to the ground, tears off his burning jacket. He looks at the destroyed column with insane eyes. He doesn't understand what happened. Where did it come from? Aviation? Heavy artillery? A secret Russian weapon? It doesn't even occur to him that his battalion was destroyed by sawmill waste and fertilizer from a collective farm barn. The noise of battle subsides, giving way to the crackle of fire. Metal monsters die long, cooling down and clicking with red-hot iron. The road, which was supposed to be the Wehrmacht's triumphal path to Kursk, became a graveyard of illusions about technical superiority. Physics finished its lecture. Grade excellent for Sergeant Grachev. Grade death for the design of the Ferdinand. The silence in the headquarters of the 9th Field Army of the Wehrmacht rings louder than artillery cannonade. It is a sterile, well-lit room smelling of expensive tobacco, coffee, and tension. On the walls hang perfect maps drawn with colored pencils. Blue arrows of German strikes were supposed to close with the southern group today, trapping hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers in a cauldron. But the arrows froze. General Colonel Walter Model stands over the table. He is called Hitler's fireman, a master of defense and a genius of tactical improvisation. He is a man of facts, figures, and steel. He believes in logistics, not luck. And now his worldview, built on logic and calculations, is cracking. A communications officer enters the room. He is pale. His hand, extending the coded message, trembles barely noticeably. This is a breach of protocol. A Wehrmacht officer must be dispassionate. But what is written on the paper knocks the ground out from under his feet. Herr General Colonel, Heavy Tank Destroyer Battalion 654, the officer's voice breaks. 100% equipment loss in the breakthrough sector. Model slowly turns his head. His gaze is heavy as lead. Clarify. 100%. Does that mean they cannot continue movement? Stuck? Tracks? No, Herr General. They are destroyed. All of them. Dead silence hangs in the headquarters. Only the ticking of the wall clock is heard. Model takes the sheet of paper. He reads the dry lines of the report, but his brain refuses to perceive them. Ferdinand. 200 millimeters of frontal armor. Electric transmission. The best gun of the war. This tank was created as an absolute weapon, a battering ram breaking any defense. According to engineers' calculations, Soviet artillery could only scratch its paint. Aviation could destroy single machines only with a direct hit of a heavy bomb, which, in combat conditions, is a statistical rarity. Minefields were supposed to be cleared by sappers, and now he is told that an elite company ceased to exist in 1 minute. With what? Model asks quietly. What did they take them with? Heavy B-4 howitzers? Concentrated fire of core artillery? The communications officer hesitates. Reports from the field are confused, Herr General. Crews following behind speak of volcanoes. The earth just exploded under them. No whistle of shells, no air raid. Just flashes from underground of such power that turrets flew 50 meters. Model walks to the map. He looks at the thin line of the dirt road that was supposed to be a triumphal arch for his tanks. Now this line is crossed out with a bold red cross. Sappers reported the passage was clear. The general says this not to the officer, but to himself. They used Frankfurt mine detectors. They covered every meter. At this moment, a collision of two realities occurs. The German one, where war is a chess game with clear rules and characteristics of pieces, and the Russian one, where rules change during the game, and instead of chess pieces, burning coals are poured onto the board. The general understands. If the Russians found a way to destroy Ferdinand's in batches, then the entire concept of the offensive is under threat. His steel fist has unclenched. The armor on which all hopes were pinned turned out to be paper. This is a new weapon, Model pronounces. Super powerful high explosives? Magnetic mines of an unknown system? Radio-controlled charges? He doesn't know that the secret weapon is written off milk cans and woodworking waste. If he were told the truth right now, he would order the informant shot for a stupid joke. A Wehrmacht general cannot lose a war to sawdust. He can only lose to an equally brilliant technical solution. And he begins to invent this brilliant opponent, overestimating the threat. Panic reigns on the airwaves at this time. Soviet intercept radio operators in their dugouts press headphones to their ears, barely making out hysterical German commands through the crackle of interference. Usually, the German ether is a model of discipline. Short, chopped phrases, call signs, target designations. Now there is chaos. Black Death! They are hitting from underground! Someone screams on an open frequency. Back! All vehicles back! Sappers, forward! Sappers don't see them. Instruments are silent. These are ghost mines. The intelligence major, sitting next to the radio operator, quickly writes the translation in a notebook. He smiles. He knows what panic of the unknown is. It is scarier than panic from shelling. When a soldier sees the enemy, he shoots. When the enemy is invisible and kills instantly, the soldier freezes. Comrade Major, they are screaming that we used some kind of seismic weapon, the radio operator chuckles. Demanding aerial reconnaissance, afraid to move. Let's return to the German headquarters. Motel makes a decision that will change the course of the battle in this sector. Stop, he says. Halt the offensive on the north vector. Withdraw surviving vehicles to the rear. Conduct a full engineering survey of the area. But, Herr General, the Chief of Staff tries to object. The schedule of Operation Citadel. To hell with the schedule, Model explodes, slamming his fist on the map. I cannot send equipment worth millions of Reichsmarks into a black hole. Until I get an answer as to what these mines are and how to detect them, not a single tank moves. This is a strategic dead end. One company, destroyed by a makeshift method, stopped an army. Not physically, the Germans still have hundreds of tanks. Psychologically, fear of invisible death paralyzed the command's will. Motel is sure he faced a systemic, high-tech response from the Soviet defense industry. He orders scientific companies, experts from Berlin, labs on wheels to be brought up. He wants to study the craters, take soil samples, find fragments of fuses. He doesn't know there is nothing to study. The aluminum burned without a trace. The sawdust turned to ash. The nitrate became gas. Only holes and twisted German iron remained at the explosion site. The perfect crime against military science. At this moment, many kilometers from the army headquarters, Sergeant Grachev rolls a cigarette with fingers trembling from adrenaline. He doesn't know that he just forced one of Hitler's best generals to rewrite the plans of the summer campaign. He just sees that the tanks aren't driving anymore. "Got scared, the bastards," he states, looking at the smoke columns on the horizon. "They don't like our porridge. Too spicy." The element of surprise worked 100%. The most powerful armor of World War II turned out powerless against the most primitive chemistry. And this fact, recorded in dry casualty reports, became a shock from which the German command on this sector of the front never fully recovered until the end of the day. Time won by the explosion of milk cans was now working for the Red Army. Reserves were pulling up, artillery was changing positions, infantry was strengthening lines. The crisis was overcome. But in the German headquarters, they would puzzle over the riddle of Russian seismic mines for a long time, spawning myths about Bolshevik wonder weapons, while the solution lay in any village barn. Technological arrogance was punished. Strategy built on the characteristics of hardware crumbled when colliding with reality, where mind and ingenuity weigh more than armor plate. Model didn't lose this round to Zhukov or Rokossovsky. He lost to Sergeant Grachev and his aluminum milk cans. Smoke over the road dissipates, but the smell of burning has eaten into the earth permanently. Now there is a new sound here, not the clatter of tracks, but the rustle of Willie's tires. Brass arrives at the scene of the slaughter. Officers in clean tunics and caps with colored bands get out of the car. This is the Army Engineering Directorate, a commission. Senior Sergeant Grachev stands by the parapet. He feels no triumph. He feels only leaden fatigue and sticky cold in his stomach. Violation of regulations, arbitrariness, use of non-standard munitions. This bouquet of accusations warrants a tribunal. In the Army, initiative is punishable, especially if it borders on insanity. The major, the battalion commander, stands nearby, nervously biting his lip. He is also under fire. They are both gamblers who bet everything on zero. And now they wait to see if the casino acknowledges the win. A colonel engineer, gray-haired, with a face cut by wrinkles, walks up to the skeleton of the lead Ferdinand. He doesn't look at the corpses of German tankers. He is interested in the metal. He runs his hand along the torn edge of the belly. Steel 3 fingers thick is turned inside out like a flower petal. The welds didn't just burst, they evaporated. "The nature of the damage is atypical," the colonel pronounces, addressing the entourage scribbling in notebooks. "This isn't a shaped charge jet, and not a brisant impact. It's a hydrodynamic rupture." As if a balloon was inflated from inside. He turns to Grachev. His gaze is prickly, evaluating. "Who authored the charge?" "I did, Comrade Colonel. Senior Sergeant Grachev." "What did you stuff it with?" "Mixture ZH," Grachev answers, using an old sapper term. "Nitrate, sawdust, casing, aluminum milk can." "Detonator?" 200-gram block and MUV. "Proportions?" 70-30, by eye. The colonel is silent. He looks at the sergeant, then at the destroyed tank that cost the Reich hundreds of thousands of marks, then shifts his gaze to an aluminum shard lying in the dust. A calculation happens in his head. The cost of one Grachev mine is 3 cents. Efficiency, absolute. The coefficient of performance tends to infinity. WWII, repeats the colonel, and suddenly the corners of his lips twitch barely noticeably. You have a good eye, Sergeant. A state eye. There will be no execution. Instead of a firing squad, field mail arrives. The Order of the Red Star appears on Grachev's tunic. But this is just an external attribute. The real recognition happens not on the parade ground, but in the staff tent where typewriters clatter. The story with can mines instantly stops being a tall tale and becomes a document. War is bureaucracy. Any successful experience must be documented, systematized, and replicated. If it works here, it must work on the entire front. By the evening of the same day, the Army Engineering Department issues an emergency directive. The secret classification is removed from the idea itself. The text is dry, hard, extremely specific. In view of the high effectiveness of surrogate explosive mixtures against heavy enemy armor, I order... Detailed instructions follow. That same recipe Grachev composed in his mind now takes the form of paragraphs and points. Point 1. Collection of containers. Not only cans go into action, but pipe scraps, wooden boxes lined with roofing felt, ceramic pots. The main condition is a rigid casing to create gas pressure. Point 2. Preparation of the mixture. Proportions, sawdust humidity requirements, safety measures for crushing nitrate are clearly written. Point 3. Tactics of application. Chessboard pattern, camouflage, depth of laying. The front newspaper printing house receives an urgent order, not for leaflets with slogans, but for technical brochures. Memo to the sapper demolitionist. Diagrams of the mine cross-section are printed on cheap gray paper. Here is the casing, here is the charge, here is the detonator. Drawings are simple, so any recruit from reinforcements understands. Soldiers' ingenuity, which was previously considered partisan amateurism, is legalized. It becomes part of the military machine. The system acknowledges that in a total war, academic rules lose to mental flexibility. The German engineering school creates masterpieces that cannot be quickly reproduced. The Soviet school learns to kill these masterpieces with what is lying underfoot. Can fever begins all along the front. Sapper platoons turn into chemical laboratories. Villages are combed for any suitable container. Empty casings from large-caliber artillery, buckets, jerry cans go into action. Grachev is summoned to headquarters not for interrogation, but for consultation. He, a tractor driver just yesterday, sits in front of officers and explains the nuances of tamping. The main thing is density, he says, drawing with a finger on the table. If you pour it loosely, it won't work. You need to press so a finger won't go in. Then the wave will go tight. His words are written down by majors and lieutenant colonels. This is the triumph of a practitioner. Experience paid for with risk and sweat converts into doctrine. German intelligence soon begins reporting mass use by Russians of high-power mines. They look for factories producing these mines. They bomb railway junctions. They don't understand that the factory is in every ravine where there is a saw and a bag of fertilizer. Production is decentralized to the squad level. It cannot be destroyed because ingenuity cannot be destroyed. A week after the battle on the Kursk salient, hundreds of kilometers of the front are covered with these homemade devices. Wehrmacht casualty statistics crawl up. Tanks blow up on mines that mine detectors don't see. German sappers start fearing any unevenness on the road. The tempo of the offensive falters. Fear of invisible death makes the enemy cautious, and caution in war is a loss of time. Loss of time is defeat. Grachev looks at recruits stuffing sawdust into rusty buckets. He sees his own movements from that night in their actions. "Tamp it better, son," he throws out, passing by. "This isn't a sandbox. This is an argument." The system absorbed the idea, digested it, and made it a standard. There is no Grachev method anymore. There is the Instruction for Manufacturing Landmines from Improvised Materials. The author's name isn't on the cover, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that a simple aluminum milk can is officially recognized as a weapon capable of stopping a tank division. This is the moment when war moved to another plane. It is no longer a competition of economies and factories. It is a competition of adaptability. And in this discipline, the Red Army, armed with sawdust and fury, turned out to be unreachable for the pedantic enemy. The order on Grachev's chest shines dully in the light of a smoky lamp. He doesn't wear it for show. He knows the price of this award. The price is 25 kilograms of mixture and one sleepless night that turned a page of military history. The experiment is finished. The routine of war has begun, where a miracle is put on an assembly line. The war didn't end in that ravine near Ponry. It rolled further west, grinding cities, fates, and geography. Senior Sergeant Grachev followed it. He didn't become a general. He didn't sit in headquarters drawing arrows on maps. He remained who he was from the beginning, a laborer of war, a man clearing the way for others. From the Kursk salient to the cobblestones of Berlin, thousands of kilometers. And every kilometer of this road required an engineering solution. Now, the task changed. If in 43 it was necessary to stop, then in 44 and 45 it was necessary to break through. But the principle remained the same. Where steel runs into steel, the one who knows how to think outside the manual wins. Grachev passed the Dnieper, the Vistula, and the Oder. His hands, calloused from working with a shovel and detonators, sent concrete pillboxes into the sky on the Silo Heights, and cracked anti-tank dragon's teeth in Pomerania. He saw how equipment changed. Soviet tanks became more powerful, artillery larger. But he remembered the lesson of July 1943. The most terrible weapon is not the caliber of the gun, but the flexibility of the mind controlling that gun. He became a virtuoso of destruction. He could determine the type of German mine by ear, understand where a charge was buried by the color of the soil, and measure by eye the right amount of TNT so a bridge would collapse exactly into the riverbed, not fly into splinters. But inside this mastery of destruction lived the longing of a creator. Grachev looked at burning cities not as conquered fortresses, but as ruined farms that someone would have to rebuild. May 1945 brought silence. It was deafening, unusual, scarier than cannonade. People used to living in the rhythm of explosions relearned to hear birds singing and the noise of wind in leaves. Grachev returned home, to that very village near Voronezh, where once, in a past life, he was just a tractor driver. His tunic with medals lay in the back drawer of a dresser. He didn't like wearing it. The Medal of Awards pulled to the ground, reminding him of the price paid for the right to return. He put on greasy overalls. They smelled the same as at the front, of diesel, sweat, and dust. But now it was the dust of a plowed field, not ruins. He sat behind the levers again. It was an old Stalinets, battered by war, assembled from 3 non-working machines. Iron creaked, the engine sneezed, demanding repair. But for Grachev, this was the best music. He put his hands on the wheel, those same hands that mixed nitrate with sawdust, that screwed fuses into hellish machines, that sent the Wehrmacht elite into oblivion. Now these hands were doing the opposite. They weren't digging holes for death. They were cutting furrows for life. The field before him was huge, empty, and waiting. The plow bit into the black soil, turning over layers of rich, fertile earth. Grachev drove the tractor evenly, holding the horizon line. He knew there was still a lot of iron in this earth: shrapnel, casings, unexploded shells. The earth would be pushing the war out of itself for a long time. But he also knew that grain is stronger than metal. It will grow through rust. Evenings, after his shift, he went into his shed. There, among shovels, rakes, and coils of wire, in the corner stood an old, dented aluminum milk can. Ordinary milk flask for 38 liters. The lid scratched, rubber seal dried out. To any outsider, it was just junk that was a pity to throw away. Grachev sometimes walked up to it, ran his palm along the cold side. This piece of aluminum was a time machine for him. It returned him to that stifling July night.
It reminded him of the cold in his stomach, of trembling fingers, of the smell of ammonia, and of how the earth shook when Ferdinands flew into the air. This can was a monument, not to generals, not to strategy, not to industry. It was a monument to the simple human mind, a mind that in a critical situation, backed into a corner, found a way out where academics saw none. It was a reminder that a human is always bigger than circumstances, that living thought will always defeat a dead scheme. The German engineering school created ideal monsters. They were technically perfect, but they were dead. They were slaves to instructions and physical laws. Grachev and men like him were alive. They could improvise. They could turn trash into a weapon. They could do the impossible because they had no other choice. Grachev walked out of the shed, latching the door. He looked at the sunset flooding the sky with crimson light. Tomorrow back to the field. Tomorrow back to work. Plowing, sowing, harvesting, feeding the country that survived. War showed what man the destroyer is capable of. Peace showed what man the creator is capable of. And in this quiet labor on the land, there was more greatness than in all the tank attacks of history. Iron rusts. Tanks go to smelting. The menacing Ferdinands remained only in black and white photos and museum hangars. But the field lives forever. And the man walking on this field is the master of his destiny. Sergeant Grachev, conqueror of Hitler's menagerie, finished his cigarette, looking at the first stars. He knew the main secret of this war. Armor is strong, but man is stronger. Especially if this man knows what he lives for. The screen goes dark. Only sound remains. The sound of a working tractor moving away into the distance. The steady, calm rhythm of life that defeated death.